Baylor football coach Dave Aranda, David Smoak, 365 Sports. Did you see Saturday night's performance coming?
We've been getting better week by week, and so if I were to predict that it would be like that, probably not. But the practices, really since the bye, and I know that that includes the West Virginia game, but have been the best of the year. And the pre-games have been strong, and the half times have been good. And so there's just a feeling that you have. When it feels wrong, and when it feels right, and it's just felt better and better as we go. And so I'll take Saturday anytime we can get it.
How do you ensure that that's not the exception?
We talk about that quite a bit. You look at the Tech West Virginia game, and so what happens, and this is not to just, probably shouldn't use both those teams' names, but what happens is you have a great win on one side, and then you get, everyone sees it, and there is a tension that comes with it, and then and then the team that you're playing is not getting any attention, and then that feeds them, and it's all the external battle. If you allow it to get to that, that is just an up and down battle. You look at West Virginia that lost that game to Tech, and they're getting just all this, criticism and all this other stuff, and then they're kind of pronounced, they're out of it, and then they have a great game versus TCU. And so anytime it's the outside stuff pushing the agenda, you leave yourself way at risk. And so it has to be the focus on, for us, like motivation, like autonomy would be one thing, mastery would be another thing, what's our purpose, why are we doing this would be the third thing, to keep it on those three things, and not any of the outside stuff, which we know is still in play and all that, but we can't be driven by that, because I think just the up and down that we just talked about is, you can end up being a slave to it.
You had a couple of players that were a little bit, out in the public of social media, one after a win, who's a guy I've known since he was a kid, Jackson player, then Cole Maxwell mentioned person over player. Was that just a boiling point of frustration, and how do you handle that? And obviously Cole made the trip to Lubbock.
Yeah, I think the communication, so with Cole prior to the game, I just, I look at that as my fault. There should be, our coaches should be communicating with our players on who's traveling and who's not, and talk to them personally and let them know, hey, this is why this is this way. This is what this means. This is not the end of it. Next week's a new week, and really be a listening ear for, whatever needs to be said. And so that did not happen in this case. And so then when that doesn't happen, I think you get what you get. And I think that's completely understandable, and then that's completely on me, and so it goes to show that when life moves fast and there's all this other stuff, that you have to keep the first things first, and so it's a lesson learned.
Did you think that in any way kind of like built even more of a cohesiveness in the locker room, that you kind of got through that? Because if then you lose the game, and then next thing you know, that becomes even a bigger deal, or was it even a big deal?
I don't think it was. I think that you could feel the cohesiveness kind of from the beginning of the week all the way through, and I think I'm hopeful that continues now, because I think, it's the praise that I'm worried about, because I think anytime we weren't really praised last week, which that's really when you think about it, going into a game, that Kansas game, you'd probably want it that way, where you get the win and it's not that impressive, and so that you still have an edge to you. Whereas when you get praised, now you really have to have some maturity to deal with it, and that has been an issue for us.
Dave, we've discussed your personality with Tony Dungy or Lovie Smith, or even back in the days of a Tom Landry. Some coaches are like what you are on the sideline, and some are fiery. It doesn't matter. But because of your personality, do you need vocal leaders more that actually are playing the game on your team? Not that you don't have them this year, but do you need that even more?
I don't know. I don't know if I was necessarily like silent or, I think for me on game day have been much more than last year, and it's because, I need to. I think as coaches, we need to, just with the status of our team and kind of where all of that's at. But then, I think with that though, and this just is probably too much philosophy, but I just think, the reason why we do all of this isn't really to win. It's really to grow as a person. And I think to have a player that assumes a leadership role, that can show up when times are tough and can say the things that need to be said in a way that is not divisive but instructive, I think is part of it. And I think the stronger the coach presence, which is what I'm doing now on games especially, I think what that does is that can for sure motivate, but I think that also keeps people where they're at. I don't know if it really grows them because, he's got that. Mm-hmm. I can just do this. And I think when you get past football and you're into life, I don't know if there's going to be that coach saying we run full speed or get up here and, whatever. And so I think the growth is the biggest part, and it's bigger than football, And so that's probably the internal struggle I have with where we're at right now is to try to balance doing what we need to do so that we're as successful as we can be, but also that we have to be able to grow these people because that's really why we're doing it.
Two freshmen and a sophomore among the 5 picks. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you must have done something well. You also forced Tech into some mistakes. Was that the pressure, or was that you playing a different type of defensive coverage? And does this now allow them you kind of let them even more run free as the season goes on?
I think it's all of those things. Yeah. I think, part of the autonomy with the motivation is that, within your position group or within a unit, offense or defense, or within the team, when you've done stuff well long enough, then it's like, hey, how do you see this? You're asking questions. What do you see here? This is normally how we do it. What do you think? And you have to reach a certain level to get to that point. But we've got guys that have done that throughout the year. And so when they can kind of take some ownership of it. And then I think that helps with just some motivation because they feel it, and it's rightfully so. They're making a huge, they're a huge part of it. And the choices that they're making affects all of it. And so I think there was that for sure. I think there were tweaks in the back end to keep things tighter. I think we've been there where there's space and guys are just hooking, curling up within the zones and they're converting. And then I had a lot more pressure, and we were calling them. And I thought that all 3 of those things combined.
Richard Reese is going to be named the Offensive Player of the Week in the Big 12, and 67 carries in 2 games. What was your original idea of what he might be this year, if much at all?
No, I mean, when you saw him early in camp, you could see it. And so the way he hit the line of scrimmage and the way that he cut, and it was, foot in the ground, vertical. It was falling forward. It was always learning and growing. And so there was no, it's kind of an open book for Juice and for Grimes and everybody to work with. And so there was no agendas of I got this or I know that or what about this, and all of it has just been awesome to work with. And just who he is off the person or off the field just drives it, because I think the more the team gets to know him, the more they want to block for him.
He's wiry or tough. He's learned. You saw one game against Oklahoma State, he tried to bounce out a 4th and 1 and he got caught, because in high school he could, and now he's starting to hit that hole, isn't he?
That's exactly it. Yeah. And I think to have ability and then to have a learner's mindset like that is special, and the longer he keeps it, the higher up he'll go.
So now you have Oklahoma, and obviously we know who they are, and they've kind of turned the corner a little bit. Do you see a team that looks like they've improved in the last 2 or 3 weeks?
They have. Their effort is strong. I think think their line play is physical, and their quarterback is a special player, and so it's a tough team.
Khalil Keith, how much does he give in you a little oomph in that grit on the offensive line?
No, he does. I think, and we've had some good players in his stead, but when Khalil's just got that experience, and he has that confidence about him, and he has that physicality about him, and I thought he really played well in this last game. We're expecting for more.
You've said what you thought about Halloween night. If you could be a Halloween candy, which one would you be?
That's a good one. Yeah. Let me think about that. I would probably say like Reese's. I would probably say that. Yeah, just with the peanut butter. I think that when I was a kid, that was my favorite candy. My brother always loved the candy corn, and so I just never understood that.
I didn't either.
Yeah, so I don't get him.
It's like chewing wax. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate your time. Baylor football coach Dave Aranda, 365 Sports. All right, so that's Dave.